Let us proceed with the first song.
God of War 3. Since the first entry was released in 2007, the God of War series has become something of a poster child for PlayStation. However, examining the games closely reveals some major flaws that are most painfully evident in the third game. While the presentation was still second to none, 2010's God of War 3 felt like the developers had focused solely on visuals and completely disregarded gameplay. Conflict was the same mindless action from the previous two entries, and there were few character customization options available. Even worse were the quick-time events that were used to finish off bosses, as it wasn't really satisfying to take down a massive titan with a single press of a button. Final Fantasy Roman VII. While Final Fantasy Roman VII is often considered one of the best Japanese RPG of all time, many fans were put off by some rather strange design choices. The classic battle system was redone, and players could only control 3 characters at a time as compared to 4 in previous installments. A plethora of characters felt out of place, and many were just flat out annoying. However, the biggest sin was the overwhelming and downright confusing story. The writers seemingly abandoned subtlety in favor of trying to be as dramatic as possible at every turn. This made for a mess of a plot that was under constant worry of going nowhere. Now that the 1997 game's early 3D graphics look dated, there's not much in this game. Wii Sports. When the Nintendo Wii launched in late 2006, the game that received the most attention was Wii Sports. It was bundled with all new consoles, and was said to demonstrate the types of new experiences that were possible with the Wii's motion controls. Over a decade later, that statement still holds true, and it's not a good thing. Aside from bowling, the one real standout mode, most of the sports included felt underdeveloped and easy to master. Playing tennis and baseball amounted to flailing your arms wildly, and boxing was only fun in 2-player mode. The controller was not attuned enough to pick up subtle movements, so real-life athletes with perfect form were just as good as preschool-aged children. In the end, Wii Sports was more of a flash in the pan type of release than anything with real substance. Halo 3. Halo 3 cemented its place in first-person history thanks to its truly outstanding multiplayer experience and the insane amount of advertising that preceded its release in 2007. Even so, many people bought the game to see the end of Master Chief's story, and in this respect, Halo 3 was far less enjoyable. The campaign was much too short, and contained too many open spaces where nothing really took place. On top of that, poorly designed support AI made playing the game alone something of a chore at times, especially on higher difficulties. Levels such as Cortana were both unbalanced and extremely annoying, and the more or less cliffhanger ending left much to be desired. Noire. The basic premise of Noire made it an interesting game to experience, but there were too many underlying flaws for it to be truly remembered as good. The story was often intriguing, and the visuals were at the time some of the best ever seen in an open-world game, but some of the main features were underwhelming. The biggest issues came from the investigation options. Talking felt very much like a guessing game, as in the original release players were given the option to generally believe, press, or doubt the people they were interviewing, without really knowing what these choices entailed. Sometimes, pressing a person amounted to asking them if they were telling the truth, whereas other times meant assaulting them. There was no way to tell what would happen until you tried. Then, there was the fact that you were penalized for taking down civilians. While it would have arguably been out of character for authorities to terminate unarmed civilians, that's the main thing people want to do in Rockstar's games, so taking that feature away made the open world feel shockingly oppressive. What comes next? Forcing players to obey traffic rules. Dragon Age Inquisition. Released in 2014, Dragon Age Inquisition was heralded as a return to form for the game's developer BioWare and the Dragon Age series. However, the conflict was completely uninspiring and lacked all the elements that made the first entry in the series such a great game. Instead, players were tasked with using the same basic moves to whittle away at enemies' sizable health bars. The only difference between regular enemies and so-called bosses was the size of the health bar, so climatic battles were longer, not more difficult. Add in dozens of fetch quests and hours of boring dialogue, and you have a bland RPG that can easily be skipped. Grand Theft Auto Roman 4. Grand Theft Auto Roman 4 is one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time. Upon initial release in 2008, the game became the fifth game to ever receive a perfect 10 score from GameSpot, and it was regularly described as the godfather of video games. However, the entry also managed to upset many longtime fans of the series. While all the Grand Theft Auto games are set in realistic cities, the fourth installment took things too far. The appeal of the franchise comes from players' ability to wreak totally unrealistic havoc in a normal, everyday location. With GTA Roman 4, Rockstar decided to make players really live in the city before they are allowed to terrorize it. The opening few hours of the story are incredibly slow, as players work a minimum wage job as a taxi driver, go on late dates to bowling alleys, and waste time on fictitious social media websites. The main character doesn't even get a small device until like 4 hours into the game. Anyone hoping to avoid the main story by exploring the world was severely disappointed. 75% of the map is barricaded off, and you have to beat over half the game to access every portion of the city. Almost every Assassin's Creed game. Almost every Assassin's Creed game. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Gone Home. Passage. Destiny 2. Destiny 2.
Hey guys, thank you so much for the support and likes and comments down below, and also thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to see you in the next video. Then take care.